welcome to this series on feminism. In today's video, we'll explore the essence of feminism, its origins, fundamental purpose, and the importance of gender equality. Let's dive into what makes feminism so essential in the journey toward a fairer world. If you've been on the channel before, you know that we started a new series. If this is the first time you came across this channel, hello, welcome. You can find the continuation of the series in the suggestion section at the top right. Feminism and its main purpose. Feminism is the name given to social movements and mass organizations that started with ideologies aimed at eliminating gender inequality in order to protect women's rights. Feminism touches on all areas where women are present and therefore has a wide range. It covers equal rights in education and employment, the right to legal abortion, women's health, the prevention of harassment and rape, and many other issues. Today, feminism represents an understanding of equality that defends the rights of all individuals, not just equality based on the dichotomy of femininity and masculinity. Therefore, we can say that the main aim of the feminist movement is to fight against patriarchy and its social reflections. Why is feminism important? If we came to gender inequality is a concept used to describe the unequal behaviors, attitudes, and perceptions that individuals experience based on their gender. It is rooted in differences in gender roles. Gender systems are often strictly dichotomized and hierarchical, and gender binary systems can reflect inequalities that manifest themselves in numerous aspects of everyday life. Gender inequality results from empirically grounded or socially accepted privileges from birth. Men and women are socialized differently and experience different environments throughout their lives. Due to societal influence, gender often greatly influences many key characteristics in life, such as personality. Men and women are often guided down different paths by the influence of gender role expectations and gender role stereotypes, often without being able to choose for themselves. For example, in Western societies, the color blue is often associated with boys, and they are often given toys that are associated with traditional masculine roles, such as machines and drugs. Girls are associated with the color pink and are given toys associated with traditional feminine roles, such as dolls, dresses, and dollhouses. These influences of parents or other adult figures in child's lives encourage them to conform to these roles. This tends to affect personality, career paths, or relationships. Throughout life, males and females are seen as two different species with very different personalities and needing to stay on separate paths. What is gender equality? Gender equality is too multidimensional to be defined from a single perspective. The definition varies according to the worldview of the person using the concept, their general approach to equality, and the importance and value uh, they attach to gender equality within this approach. Therefore, instead of a single definition of gender equality, we can provide examples of definitions that include different aspects of this concept. Emphasis on equal conditions, equal treatment, and equal opportunities. Gender equality is the concept that women and men, girls and boys have equal conditions, treatment, and opportunities to exercise their human rights, realize their full potential, and contribute to and benefit from economic, social, cultural, and political development of their communities. Emphasis on equity in resource allocation. Gender equality means equal access and distribution of resources to women and men. Emphasis on equal value. Gender equality is the equal consideration of the behavior, aspirations, and needs of women and men in society, taking into account their differences. Emphasis on freedom. Gender equality means that all people are free to develop their personal talents and make choices without stereotypes, prejudices, and limitations about gender roles. Emphasis on diversity and difference. Gender equality includes the right to be different. This means recognizing the diversity of different groups of women and men and taking into account differences in class, political opinion, religion, language, ethnicity, race, and sexual orientation. Emphasis on needs, priorities, and interests. Gender equality is the consideration of the needs, priorities, and interests of both women and men, girls and boys, recognizing the diversity of different groups. Emphasis on non discrimination. Gender equality implies that those who are different should not be discriminated against directly on or indirectly on the basis of the characteristics they identify with. Emphasis on gender identity. Equality does not mean that women and men are the same. It means that the rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of women and men do not depend on whether they are born male or female. Gender equality, therefore, also refers to broader concepts of gender identity, social expectations and norms associated with masculine and feminine, and social orientation. Emphasis on changing power structures. Gender equality is a strategy for identifying how to go further, changing the structures that perpetuate unequal power relations between men and women and achieving more balanced relations across the range of male and female values and priorities. Failure to define gender equality in the scope and ways exemplified above leads to a narrowing of the concept and limits us to one of the approaches to education, especially sameness education, that will be elaborated in the following. Gender education is not about biological differences but about the unequal positions of women and men in society. It is about social and cultural differences in all areas of life, including paid and unpaid work, income, property, education, health decision making, norms, habits, role assigned to and expected of women and men. These disparities disproportionately disadvantage women in many areas. Historical imbalances between women and men are reflected in all forms of human rights, including public policy activity and institution. Even today, the norm in policymaking is still, consciously or unconsciously, to see the standard man as male. To achieve the goal of gender equality, strategies that challenge norms and take into account social differences are needed at all stages of the policymaking processes. Inequalities women face. 1. Women are 48% more likely to suffer serious injuries in car accidents because safety features are designed for men. 2011 study of more than 45,000 accident victims over 11 years, researchers from the University of Virginia found that female drivers were much more likely to be injured in a car crash than male drivers. The researchers attributed this to the fact that vehicle safety equipment was designed for men. In addition to the position of the head restraints, women's shorter stature, different neck strengths and musculature, and preferred sitting positions meant they were more vulnerable to injury. 2. 33,000 girls become child brides every day. Globally, 12 million girls are married before the age of 18 every year. That's about 33,000 every day, or one every 2 seconds. There are approximately 650 million women alive today who are child brides. The reasons for this vary from one society to another, but are often that girls are not valued as much as boys and are married off at a young age, transferring the economic burden to another family. 3. Rural women in Africa spend 40 billion hours a year collecting water. In rural sub-Saharan Africa, a lack of services and infrastructure combined with the expectation of domestic chores and limited employment opportunities for women means they shoulder the unequal burden of collecting water and firewood for their families. According to the UN, these women spend 40 billion hours a year collecting water. 4. It will take 108 years to close the gender gap. According to the World Economic Forum's latest Global Gender Gap Report, it will take another 108 years to achieve gender equality at the current pace of progress. Across the 106 countries covered since the first edition of the report, the largest gaps to close are in economic and political empowerment, which will take 202 and 107 years respectively. The biggest gender gap is in political empowerment. 5. Only 6 countries give women the same legal right to work as men. The World Bank's latest Women Business and the Law report measured gender discrimination in 187 countries. According to the report, only Belgium, Denmark, France, Latvia, Luxembourg, and Sweden scored full marks on 8 indicators that affect the economic decisions women make throughout their careers, from receiving a pension to freedom of movement. A typical economy gives women only three-quarters of the rights that women have in the areas measured. 6. 22% of AI professionals are women, and this may be due to a lack of trust. According to the forum's Global Gender Gap Report, only 22% of the world's AI professionals are women, while 78% are men. This points a 72% gender gap that has yet to close and reflects wider STEM skills gap. In 2012, 14% of women entering university in OECD countries choose science-related subjects compared to 39% of men. The 2015 PISA report found that even high-achieving girls perform poorly when asked to think like scientists. Girls were less confident in solving science and math problems and had higher levels of anxiety about math. In a 2003 study of students at Cornell University, psychologists found that women rated their scientific ability lower than men, despite performing roughly the same on an exam. The researchers said women may disproportionately avoid scientific pursuits because their own perspectives lead them to mischaracterize how objectively good they are at any given scientific task. 7. There are 2.24 men for every female movie character. The Gina Davis Institute analyzed 120 films released in 10 countries between 2010 and 2013 and found that of 5,799 speaking or named characters, less than a third, 30.9%, were female and more than a two-thirds, 69.1%, were male. If you come to the origins of feminism, during the Enlightenment, the seeds of feminist ideology were sown within the defense of women's right to education. A vindication of the right of woman written by the English writer Mary Wollstonecraft in 1792 is among the first feminist works to defend this idea. Olympiadoga, who initially opposed the granting of fundamental rights only to men due to patriarchal traditions, demanding in 1793 that fundamental rights, including education and economic rights, should also apply to women, saying if a woman has the right to be condemned to the gallows, she should also have the right to watch from the tribune. In the 19th century, feminism became an organized movement as the belief that women's voice was unfair, especially in the areas of education, employment, and the law, was reinforced. Inspired by the reformist approach of the century, feminism was conceptualized by the French philosopher and utopian socialist Charles Fourier in 1837. In his work, Fourier identified poverty as the biggest problem of society. He argued that the extension of women's rights and women's entry into labor force would play an important role in progress of the whole society. In 1848, the first women's rights meeting was held in New York. In his 1869 book, The Subjection of Woman, John Stuart Mill supports Fourier, arguing that the dominance of one sex over the other is completely wrong and hinders of the development of society. Feminism is for everyone. In the early days of today's feminist movement, there was an angry anti-male faction within the movement. Heterosexual women came to the movement from relationships where men were brutal, cruel, unfaithful, and violent. Many of these men were radical thinkers who had been involved in social justice movements, speaking on behalf of workers and the poor, talking about racial justice. But when it comes to the gender, they were just as sexist as their conservative collaborators. Women came out of these relationships angry, and they used this anger as a driving force for women's liberation. As feminist thought and the movement progressed, enlightened feminist activists realized that the problem was not men. The problem was patriarchy, sexism, and male domination. It has been difficult to face the reality that the problem is not only men. Facing the need for a more complex theorization of reality required acknowledging the role women play in protecting and perpetuating sexism. As more women fled destructive relationships with men, it became easier to see the full picture. It became clear that even if individual men renounce their patriarchal privileges and the patriarchal, sexist, and male-dominated system would remain intact and women would continue to be exploited and or oppressed. Conservative mass media has consistently represented feminist women as anti-male, Whenever there was an anti-male faction or sentiment within the movement, they highlighted it to discredit feminism. Underlying the portrayal of feminists as main haters was the assumption that all feminists were lesbians. The mass media intensified anti-feminist sentiment among men by appealing to homophobia. Yet before the modern feminist movement was even 10 years old, feminist thinkers were already talking about how patriarchy harms men. Feminist politics has expanded from our angry critique of male domination to include recognition that patriarchy, by imposing a sexist male identity on men, also deprives them of certain rights. This concludes our first look into feminism and its core mission. Remember, feminism is about creating a world where everyone can live without the constraints of gender inequality. Join us in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to spread awareness. Together, we can make a difference. Bye.